Hi, Mike.
Hi, Brina. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Um, so let's talk about Appleseed Alpha. Let's start with the easy question. For the people who aren't familiar with the film, what is it about and what is the role that you play?
I play the character of Iris, and it follows Dunan and Briarios. It's post-apocalyptic, and they're essentially kind of finding their way. The city's been destroyed and trying to figure out if they should, what they should do, if they should leave the city or try and help rebuild it or whatever. And my character sort of appears out of nowhere and has a very important mission that should help with the rebuilding of the world, and Dune and Briar's help.
Very cool. Now, you're no stranger to voice acting in anime, but Appleseed is one of the biggest names in the genre. Was it exciting for you to get cast in one of the leading roles?
Yeah, absolutely. I had watched some of the previous features, and it was pretty surreal, getting to be a part of it.
Right. And then I was curious about the recording process, because I believe you also did motion capture, correct?
Yeah, I did the motion capture and the facial capture.
So can you tell us a little bit about the process that goes into both the motion capture and the recording? Where did you record all by yourself? Did you have interaction with the other voice actors? What was the process like?
With the motion capture, we did that with everybody else. We actually got to act out the scenes. It was very filmic, which was exciting. I had never gotten to do anything anime-wise, because typically with anime, when we record it, we're just recording by ourselves, so we don't get a lot of interaction with the other characters. So it was my first time getting to do that in the anime genre. Obviously, I do a lot of on-camera stuff, so I do it in that regard. But it was really cool getting to do it that way, and especially with the motion capture, because you're all wearing these skin-tight suits with reflective, balls all over them. You're just, you don't know how it's going to end up, and it's really cool to kind of just go all in and just believe, like, yes, there was totally just an explosion over there, and then just kind of play, like, you feel it's almost like being a little kid again. You're just kind of playing around and playing make-believe, because when you do film, you actually do get to see the explosion and all that kind of stuff and whatever. But with this, it was 100% imagination. But it was cool. It was rad.
Yeah. Excellent. And speaking of using your imagination, one of the things I was impressed about with the film is the emotional range that Iris goes through. She starts off kind of quiet and untrusting, and then becomes much more strong and confident. And there was one scene in particular that stood out for me. I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but something bad happens to Olsen, let's say, and you had to react to that. And it was very heartfelt and emotional. So I'm curious how challenging that is to do when you're in a booth by yourself, as opposed to acting on camera with other people.
Well, it was really helpful in this regard, because we did get to act it out when we did the motion capture, and then I did it another time when we had to do the facial capture. So then by the time I did the actual voice acting, the finalization of the voice acting, I had a lot to draw from that I had already experienced. But yeah, there are plenty of times that I have to do that in the booth when I don't have that luxury. And honestly, it's kind of like acting boot camp. Like, you just have to be all in and just believe your circumstances, no matter how ridiculous or no matter how out of nowhere it could be. You just have to go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And as somebody who's a seasoned veteran in voice acting for anime, what would you say the biggest challenges are in the genre and in voice acting in general?
Definitely with anime in particular, the difficulty comes in the fact that you're limited to the animation. Whenever you're doing more original Western cartoons, it's animated to your voice, so you have free reign and you can kind of do whatever you want. But with anime, it's already animated. You have a certain amount of time that you're allowed to say this one phrase, and there's only so many ways that you get to say it because of that. So to try and portray emotion and make it sound like that's a timing that you just came up with, rather than this is how fast I can say this or how slow I have to say this, and make it sound natural. That's really, really difficult. But conversely to that, whenever you're voice acting for something that hasn't been animated yet, sometimes it can be, if you don't have a director that's really detailed and telling you exactly what's happening at the time. A lot of times that I'll do something. Oh, that was my. Did you hear that? That was my BBC thing. Anyway, sorry.
Sure, why not?
Yeah. Anyway, so whenever you are, I'll be voicing something and I won't know what the animation is at all, and then I'll go back and watch the final product and be like, oh, well, had I known that that's what I was doing, had I known that someone was stabbing me the entire time, I probably would have done that differently.
Right.
So, with the anime, you're given everything immediately, and then with the stuff that's animated to your voice, you kind of just have to hope that the director is telling you everything you need to know.
Sure. Now, you've also done a lot of video game voiceover, and I was curious as to what are the differences between recording traditional voiceover and video game voiceover.
Video game voiceover, there tends to be a lot more yelling and fighting.
Okay.
But it goes by a lot more quickly. With animation, you're really telling a story and you kind of get directed into all that, whereas video game tends to just go by really fast. Like, here's your cue, go, right. Cue, next cue, next cue, next cue. So you don't really get to spend that much time with your character. Whereas with anime, I'll do hundreds of episodes. Like I played Chopper in One Piece, and we're like in the 300s right now. So it's like I know that character inside and out. But then, with a video game like Borderlands, Mad Moxie, I don't really feel like I know her that well because I spend very little time with her.
Right.
I'll spend like for each game, it's like maybe 2 to 4 hours, maybe. So it's always intimidating whenever I do panels for stuff like that, because I'm just like, I don't really know what to say. I don't really remember that much about this character. It was really fun, I can say that, but people want you to talk in depth because they've spent much more time with their character than you have.
Sure. Yeah. And then switching gears a little bit, in addition to all your voice acting experiences, you have been starring on Starcrossed. And I was curious what that experience was like for you, because that's something a little bit different, a sci-fi show. You get to wear some makeup and stuff. What's that experience been like?
Yeah, I get to play a pansexual alien, which is awesome.
Right.
I really loved my character in that. She was so sweet and so kind, and I really liked that I got to portray a member of the LGBT community that wasn't scandalous, and it wasn't like, oh my God, she kissed a girl. It was just like, oh, she's rather than being the most scandalous character, she was the sweetest and most grounded, and the moral compass of the show, really. And I love that the whole pansexual part of her was just sort of a backdrop. It wasn't even like a big deal. It was just like her love story was told the same way that it would have been had it been a boy and a girl. You know what I mean? Which I really appreciated.
Sure. So now, you're doing voiceovers, you're doing live action. You've got a pretty good amount of both of them going on. How do you direct yourself at this point? Are you focusing on one side more than the other? Or is it just whatever comes along? How do you pick what you're going to do next?
I've always been a lot more of the kind of person that just whatever the universe gives to me, I will, do that. But I have been consciously focusing on trying to write more. Just to do more original stuff. I wrote and produced a web series a few years ago called The Troubadours, and that was a really great learning experience. And I'd like to do something like that again. Maybe not a web series, but something original again to kind of like do it right this time, because I didn't know what I was doing when I did Troubadour. It turned out great and it was funny. You guys should all watch it. But it was definitely that was like my film school, was doing that web series. And now I'd like to do something knowing what I know now.
Makes sense. And then speaking of which, that was a nice segue. What do you have coming up next that people can be on the lookout for?
Things that I can actually talk about. There are a couple of things that I've been working on that I really am excited for people to see that I can't talk about. But
too bad.
Let's see. Thanks. Gosh, I Well, for any of you guys who follow me on YouTube, Brinakins is my name on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I have my super nerd girl character, Kagura 422 1973. I will be coming out with a new music video for her by the end of the year, and it will definitely be the most epic of all the ones that I've done so far. So
Cool.
just be ready for that.
Excellent. All right, so wrapping up then, what's one thing you'd like the world to know about you that they don't already know?
Oh my gosh. I feel like people know so much about me. Oh my God. This is such a tough question. Let's see. I play Plants vs. Zombies like every day.
There you go.
It's my favorite game of all time. I have like T-shirts and stuff from it. I really, really love that game. It's the greatest.
Now all your fans
I like
who
literally every
you're
day.
gonna be like, yes.
Yeah, like right before I go to sleep, I'll play around, and then when I wake up, I play the Pinata special event every morning. That's how I start my day. That's how I start and finish my day.
There you go. I'm the same way with Words with Friends, so I understand.
Nice.
Great. Well, Brina, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.